Communist Party attacked Israel and the United States stance on Israel. Why is that?
Uyghurs in Xinjiang province in China were forced to curse Mike Pompeo. What is that about?
Strong voices against the critical race theory and the dismissal of Lieutenant Colonel Lomier.
Welcome to the live broadcast of Wei and Kathy show.
Welcome, everyone.
All right, yeah, thank you for staying with us. And so let's jump right into our topic. So, yeah, what is, we do know that this conflict, right, between Hamas and Israel. And there's the exchange of fire, a lot of rocket, and then there's this Iron Dome, who is intercept 90% of them. And the most recent news is they seems to be coming to a ceasefire. All right. And in the meantime, we want to review you something that you may not be quite aware. What is the CCP doing amid all this? They are pretty busy. What are they busy about?
So the Chinese Communist Party's state-run media, Global Times, this Wednesday, they published a program. It compared Beijing's brutal oppression of Uyghur Muslims to Israel's defensive action against Palestinian terrorist attack. You may wonder, how could they do that?
How were those two things correlated?
Yeah.
Actually, they don't. Anyway, okay. Yeah, just go ahead, Kathy.
All right. Yeah. So the Global Times they were, their rhetoric is like the United States is hypocrisy because it supports Israel for defending itself against Hamas, but not defending China for its taking allegedly prudent precaution against the threat of the Uyghur extremists.
So first, they claim the Uyghurs, the 1 million people that they lock up in the, in the labor camp, they call them, those are extremists, 1 million extremists.
Yeah, and also the paper declared that China's fellowship with the Palestinians, because they just say, well, take a listen what they say. They said, when a country does not have enough strength to resist hegemony, the fate of its people is quite miserable. And the Chinese people have sympathy for the Palestinians because we can feel their anger and helplessness. And on China's Twitter-like Sina Weibo, it's a social media in China, it claimed that many netizens have expressed indignation towards the U.S. for America's partial stance, which led to injustice.
And so the state spokesperson, his name is Zhao Lijian. This is the person who also said, what did he say? All the, U.S. is the source of the virus. It is that guy. And he said this in his speech. He said, just hang on here, I need to bring up his topic. And he said, why does the U.S. care so much about human rights in Xinjiang, not the human rights of Palestinians in the Middle East? So, and the reason he continued to give the reason, he said, because American only they really just have a bias towards Israel. Okay, so they care about their own interest, so they don't care about the right or wrong of the matter themselves. So this rhetoric has been, spreading wide and in China. A lot of people took that, and then this is their the way they positioned this. So that's why I just want to do some analysis here, share my observation. Hopefully through this you can see how CCP actually communism. How do they do things? And as we all know that in the Xinjiang is the northwest province of China, there has been this large-scale persecution against the Uyghurs there. right? So over 1 million people, they were locked up in the labor camp. They call that is called a training 培训中心. Yeah, just training center.
Yeah.
Okay, training
and education center.
education center. Okay, they said they are there just learn skills. We didn't, persecute them, and we did not mistreat them, and so on and so forth. But, there's walls, there's this, wire, the electronic fence and things like that. And then this is the what happened there. So it is something that the world recognized very well. Okay, this is a severe human right violation. And then Pompeo actually also agreed by Blinken in Xinjiang. This is what 种族灭绝
Genocide.
Genocide. It's a genocide. It's a genocide of ethnic group. And CCP turned this issue into how American is ignoring the Palestinians' human rights. Of course, among the conflict with Israel, right? So how does these two things can correlate? They don't, right? So the human rights of Palestinians, are there violations of Palestinians' human rights? Very likely. I cannot deny that. I cannot deny completely because I don't know. I cannot say there's no, right? But the main issue in the Midwest, in my opinion, is basically whether Israel have a right to survive.
In the Middle East.
In the Middle East, I'm sorry. Whether Israel have a right to survive, to exist as a nation, right? This is the Arabian world, basically in the Middle East. They just don't want. They do not recognize that right. Okay, so around that, there's so many rounds of conflict. And during this conflict, some people's human rights may be, violated. It could be Palestinians. It can be Israelis. We don't know, right? That happened. But that happened under this big context. It's really not a minor issue. It's really disproportionate to compare this with that. And the human rights in Middle East, that has to do with, Israelis and the Palestinians authority, right? And then it has very little to do with the U.S., who simply have to decide whether it should lend support to Israel for it to exist as a nation. All right? So they compare this human right issue that happened during the war with the genocide they have in China. But they do have a way to convince Chinese people it makes sense because they are all Muslims, right? They are all Muslims. So why Americans that don't care about the right of the Muslim over here in the Middle East, they care about Muslim, right in Xinjiang. Is that hypocrisy? That's basically their angle. Okay, so all these tactics are very, very familiar. Okay, so communists, in order to win their power, they always have to define their alliance, and then define their enemy. So in their calculation, the oppressed, the weaker one, the Arabian nations, the Muslims, they are their allies, okay? And Israel is their enemy, and the U.S. are their enemy. So they tell them, I'm sitting on your side, while the oppressed and while the righteous, and so on and so forth. Just forget what happened in Xinjiang, okay? I'm supporting you to be against Israel and against the U.S. Okay, this is just another form of class struggle. All the farmers are the good people. No matter they are, individually they are good or bad, all the farmers are righteous. All the landowners are vicious. They're bad, evil people. So this is how communism functions and they win their world.
Yeah.
So in this,
and in the meantime, by the way, it took the opportunity to just glorify it's what it's doing in Xinjiang. And they were saying, actually, what the West, the Americans are reporting about the human rights abuse in Xinjiang is not true. And in fact, in Xinjiang, people are just living under a better life. The economy just revived, and they just insert this type of rhetoric into this long article, but in the meantime, it just really achieve their goals of different ways, right? In different ways. One is to just glorify, try to glorify what they are doing in Xinjiang, and also then just like we shared with you, it's their class struggle. They defined the class struggle again.
So in the international theater or the Middle East theater, the CCP, the communist tactic is this: is basically saying Palestinians, Muslims, they're all good people, they're all righteous people, they are righteous people. Okay, all Israelis and all Americans, they are evil people. Okay, I'm standing on your side. Okay, that's how they grow their base, their power base, their alliance. In Chinese, this is called unified front. Unified front means I identify who I can work with at this time. Then I isolate the enemy. Then we attack them. After we eliminate those enemies, I relook at my unified front, and then I pick a few I want to eliminate now, and I just shift, and we'll just define them as our enemy, and just convince everybody else how bad they are. So after they got eliminated, they got to work on the rest until they become the single power. That's basically communist way. That's their way. Okay, so before they are able to become the total, completely, authority, they need this unified front. So the communist China CCP have three they call it 法宝. Okay, three treasure, treasure of policy or policy treasure. One is called the military struggle. They always recognize guns. Military is the what finally counts. The second is the build up of the party, how to expand the party, how to make the party very efficient and a very executive, very 非常 very efficient and effective. Yes, efficient and effective. And the third one is this called unified front. So this is what they're doing there. And in this country, today, their struggle is this. Their American communism is basically ethnic struggle. Who are their allies? Who are in their unified front? Black people, Black American, and Muslim, and Spanish, Latino American, and Asian. A good portion, most of the Asian. Those are in there, and women. Those are in their alliance, unified front. And the enemy, not single enemy, white American, Caucasian American. Those are the enemies. Once they defeat them, they're gonna pick probably Asian or Latino, and pick them as the enemy. So divide and conquer. That's their way. So that's basically what we really need to be aware of.
Yeah, and by the way, maybe some of you may wonder how is the Chinese people's viewpoint on the Israel on this conflict between Israel and the Palestinian, right? I think we can take an opportunity to explain. Yeah, because some people feel like, maybe saw some survey saying that maybe a good portion of the Chinese people actually are with Palestinian against Israel. Maybe it's true, but we know what's the reason, right?
Yeah, when I was really young, I grew up in China, and in China, every morning at 6 o'clock, you got this loudspeaker just broadcast. It's called 新闻联播. It's called like
the
news summary or something like that.
Yeah.
News summary, and then just broadcast to your ear for 1 hour. I was really
every
young.
Day.
I don't want to get up. You remember my joke about the military, the wake up trumpet thing? I don't want to get up. I just have to listen to those. So every single child in China grew up in that kind of environment. The party brainwash you every morning. And from that, every word, all the wording about the Palestinian or the Palestinian Liberation 八节组织, PLO, right? Palestinian Liberation Organization. They are described as the righteous. They are always good. They are righteous. They are the oppressed. They are the courageous, and so on and so forth. And the Israelis, they are evil. They're just evil. Okay, this happened for decades in China. It never came to me that maybe the fact is not the case, because I have no access to any second source of news on this matter. Until I came to the U.S., I research, I read, I said, wow, maybe the other way around is true. So it's very pathetic. It's very pathetic how they brainwash people.
And on the other hand, actually, the Israelis usually most of them had a good report over Chinese people because of what happened during the World War II, right? The Chinese, at that time, the Chinese government is not under the controlled by the Communist Party, but rather the
nationalist party.
Yeah, and they helped some Israelis to escape to cities like Shanghai and help them to, escape.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Israelis really had a good, affection on China.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what they don't know is that unfortunately, still a lot of people don't realize in the Israeli government right now it's a different government now.
It's not the same China. Okay,
Yeah.
that nationalist is gone. They were driven to Taiwan, and then the communist China. In our perception now, we more and more Chinese realize very well we already lost our nation. We lost our nation to the communists who came from Russia, who came from Germany. In Chinese, we call this 亡国奴, Wang Guo Nu. I don't know how to, can you search that, how to translate that into, it's a very humiliating term. And so we already lost our nation, okay? We are a nationless, we're
Subjugated.
Subjugated.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Okay.
Subjugated.
Subjugated slave. Okay, that's who we are. We lost our nation. So when Israelis, they have deep appreciation for this, Chinese version of Schindler. The nationalists used to have embassies in Germany, and the other German-occupied countries. So through issuing visa to the Jews, they were able to rescue many people, let them come to Shanghai. Okay, so after they came to Shanghai, I think it's more than 100,000 people. They were able to escape Europe, Nazis Germany, Nazis Europe, and they come to China and find their life. So I think Israel are very appreciative for that. They always remember that. Mm-hmm. So even though CCP has been bad-mouthing them for decades, they were very friendly. Of course, they will also want to make money. But they export a lot of military technology to the CCP, thinking that's a way of appreciation and also make some good money. But they really selling those things into the wrong hands.
Yeah, and probably it looks like this time the CGTN, the Chinese Communist Party's state-run media, what they published, maybe a wake-up call for the Israeli government. Mm-hmm. Actually, the ambassador in China of the Israel, they sent out a strong statement condemning what CGTN, the article, the editorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, the Chinese Communist government just don't waste any opportunity to this time try to justify their oppression of the Uyghurs. In the meantime, try to just blame United States and claim United States is hypocrisy on this issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's move on to the next piece of news. AP actually have a report on yesterday. They obtained a internal document of a Klamai city, a city in Xinjiang of the government's document. The document said this: okay, require every department shall find a Uyghur who speak fluent Mandarin Chinese and record a 1-minute video in which to respond to the former Secretary of the State Mike Pompeo's anti-China speech. Okay, so in this particular document, he said, besides finding a Uyghurs who can speak Mandarin Chinese, they also write the script for them. So the script said this: this person shall express explicitly the attitude against the Pompeo's remarks. For example, I resolutely am against the Pompeo's anti-China remark, and I feel indignant about those speech. And you can also express your love for the party, for the country, and for Xinjiang. For example, you can say, I'm Chinese, I love my motherland, I feel happy in my work and in my life, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and AP was not able to independently verify this document, but actually it's a screenshot. It came from a linguist. His Chinese name is Chen Haoyu, and he got it from a friend who worked in the Xinjiang government. So, and the other fact is that 3 days after this was exposed, this linguist and his friend, both of them were arrested. Mm-hmm. So this, in another way, kind of confirm this could be very true.
Yeah, and another case that they got caught is in the late March of this year. A guy called, his name called Ta Heizhijiang. Ta Heizhijiang. He's a Uyghur from Xinjiang. He claimed that he graduated from one of those training
education
and education center. And he said, over there, I learned law and regulation. I learned management of enterprise, and the remark about the labor camp, done by the Western media are completely lie. And then what is interesting is just then people dig out his another video that he has that he record, and he was in the last July, which is 6 months earlier. Mm-hmm. And in that video, he said, I graduated from Fudan University 15 years ago, and after that, I established a new company, and so that video is promoting entrepreneurship. Okay, so you may say, well, is that a problem?
Yeah, because Fudan University, by the way, that's where Wei and Kathy graduate from. Yeah. It's a very
one of the top schools.
Top school in Shanghai, and so this person graduated from this top school.
It's like
top
from
university.
Harvard. It's like from Harvard.
Right.
And then he say, I went to a education and training class from run by the government. I learned
in Xinjiang.
I learned the law and the regulation. It's just
It doesn't.
And this guy was from Harvard in another video. So just the thing doesn't match up. It just doesn't match up. Okay.
Yeah. So this shows how the Chinese Communist government, use actors mm-hmm. to just pretend, and and say something that what they want them to say, and to record them and show to the public. Okay. That's how they do it.
Yeah. Let's move our attention to the what is in this country. Remember that we talked to you about this lieutenant colonel, mm-hmm. Lumiere. Lumiere's being fired from his job, and he's the 11th Space Warning Squadron, and the commander of that squadron. And he was fired, and then so what's the consequence of? He was fired for his speaking out against critical race theory and the military and the Marxism, being taught in the military. So what happened now, Kathy?
Yeah. So 24 Republican lawmakers, they actually wrote a letter, and calling on the acting Air Force Secretary to reinstate the Lieutenant Colonel from his job. And this letter was led by Colorado Representative Doug Lamborn. So the letter says that it was sent on Wednesday, May 19th, after Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lumiere was fired from his job. And in the letter, it says that we call on you to reinstate Lieutenant Colonel Lumiere immediately, and barring any violation of the UCMJ, which had not been seen publicly disclosed. And he said, the letter says, whether you agree with him or not, no rational American can review his level-headed critique of the critical race theory based diversity, equity, and inclusion training the military is currently conducting, and concluded that his comment on this subject deserve relief of command. Yeah, and the representatives also warned that the senior leaders can no longer ignore critical race theory being spread throughout the military under the guise of diversity training. They said it's time for choosing. So those leaders who are complicit with this poisonous philosophy which promotes racial essentialism and collective guilt in our beloved military will be judged by history accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you think? It's But basically, I think in this kind of situation, it's really great. I think for those congressional representatives, right? I think they responded reasonably fast, and I think that's good job a good job by them. I think we should give them compliment, and we should even just write to them and thanking them for speaking out on this.
Yeah, if nobody just say something, then those senior leaders who made the decision think, it's okay just to do that. And in the meanwhile, in other states, actually, the lawmakers are also making some move against the critical race theory. In South Dakota, South Dakota's Joint Mission on Appropriations issued a letter of intent, inform the state education bureaucrats that they should refrain from applying for federal grants to teach U.S. history or civics until after the legislatures can review this topic in its next session. And meanwhile, in Utah, what happened?
In Utah, actually,
both the House and the Senate Republicans passed a resolution during this week against using critical race theory in schools. So, more and more states are taking action just to try to bar the schools teaching the critical race theory.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to share with you is, let us know how you think. The next one, I want to move on to back to China. The Chinese Foreign Ministry recently published a series of articles, basically memorizing the history, how they deal with the foreign relationship. And there's one article, remember that how we lost China to CCP in 1949. So in Chinese propaganda, they always said, we are like a 小米加步枪. Okay, we just use just rifle, very
very primitive weapons.
Yeah, weapons to win
the rice.
To win the 8 million nationalist army who were armed by the United States. Okay, it's our great accomplishment, and this article explained clearly, unintentionally, that what really happened, which actually I already know that part. So before near the end of this World War II, before Japan surrendered, and there was a military panel from the U.S. and led by Bao Ruide.
General David Barrett.
So he went to Yan'an. Yan'an is the then capital of the CCP, and to pay them a visit. Okay, so basically after that visit, they said, CCP, you are this, and the nationalist is this. Well, that's what they told them, because they see a clean and simple and diligent Yan'an. And the energy of the communists are so impressive. They are so live and dynamic and sincere. And this in comparison to the corrupted nationalist party, nationalist government. So, and then later we got this Snow, right? This Snow, the journalist
Edgar Snow.
Edgar Snow went to China and wrote this the red star over China. Okay, and then finally there's other, the Communist Party journalists from the U.S. come to China, and went back to write this so-called original report, and the final result is that they misled President Truman to cut off the military aid to the Nationalist Party during its most fierce battle with the CCP. In the meantime, in the northeast China, Soviet Union invaded northeast China and drove off the Japanese occupation army there. They pass on all the Japanese military weaponry, and also the U.S. weapon that they gave to Red Army of the Soviet Union, which after they defeated Germany, they have left over. They moved the entire stockpile to the CCP. So the CCP army, the Liberation Army, PLA, they were armed to completely by the U.S. standard and the Japanese standard. They were very, very well equipped. In the meantime, President Truman decided to cut off the military aid to the nationalists because he thinks they are very corrupted. Communist China are trustworthy, they're clean, they win the support of the people, and we shall support them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the reason why those the General Barrett and the General Service they had this conclusion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think two reasons. Two reasons. First, all the visits are very, very carefully arranged for. Everything they see, they hear, and they saw were exactly what is needed to lead them to that conclusion.
Yeah, for example, the General Barrett, he personally saw this scene is like in Yan'an, that the Communist Party controlled area, how the army and the people they work together to help a U.S. pilot who was defeated, by the Japanese. And then the general just said, wow, we saw how the Chinese Communist Party's government and their army is really, it's the first one in the China's history that they got the strong support by the people. But he didn't know that this is arranged. What's the second reason?
The second reason is the CCP explicitly expressed their approval or their wish for a democratic system, democratic China. They cheat on them. They cheated on them. As simple as that. They just cheated on them. They were, and the General Barrett was misled. Mm-hmm. Communists simply lie. They're atheists. They believe in no God. In order to reach their goal, they can lie anything. They can say any type of lie. They have no moral remorse. They have no reservation. They just lie. This is with Chinese, the communist in the Soviet Union. This is the communist in China. This is communist in this country, in the United States of America. So we shall be very, very vigilant about what we heard and what we learn.
Yeah. So in one way, actually, the United States helped the Chinese Communist government defeated the nationalist party.
Yeah, nationalist party.
And then, they are, a few years later, they just got the power over China. So we really wish that the history won't repeat itself. We should just really see through the lies of the CCP.
Yeah. And the Ben Becca, you said, why can't the Chinese citizen rise up and demand the dictator of China to be held accountable? Don't they know that they are the ones in charge, not the dictator? Yeah, that's a very, very good question. It's very difficult.
It deserves a long answer.
Yeah, it deserves a long answer because for how communists control power, they are very, very, how to say?
Yeah, let's say Mao Zedong, he said two critical things that how they control. One is the military, the gun, it's the military. And second is the pen, it's the media. So the Chinese Communist government, since the beginning, they controlled the military and control the media.
Yeah.
So people just has been brainwashed since they were born.
Yeah. So when I was in my 22 before I left China, just one example, I always thought PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, they are the righteous. They represent the justice. Israelis, they're evil. They're evil people. I never have any second thought that may be wrong. So
and I'll give you another just a real experience. Actually, one of our DJ operator in the background, she actually told me, because she just left China a year ago, and she said, wow, before we came here, we never knew that the Uyghurs, we thought the Uyghurs are just the terrorists. That's how we educated see everything from in China, the media, how the media reports. And so when we think the person who is walking towards me is a Uyghur, I would just feel so scared. I would just try to avoid him or her. So that's how the Chinese Communist government used the media to brainwash people. And then the gun, the military. If you don't agree with them, don't listen to, say what they want you to say, what don't think what they want you to think, they have the power, they have the military, they have the law enforcement system just to crack down on you.
It's a very tightly controlled system. But it will break. Sooner or later it will break. And James, California said, greetings from Los Angeles. Hi, James. Yeah, so basically that's why we started this media 18 years ago. Actually, today is the 18 years anniversary of the Sound of Hope. And we were talking to our audience, inviting them to donate some money to us. We say just $1 and $1.8. Give it, buy us a piece
celebration
of cake. Yeah, a celebration cake for each of our employee or the volunteers. And because it's 18 years, right? $1.8. And then we invite them to join our membership site and pay a membership fee so that they can support us. So long story made short, we just, that's why we start this media. People have to know the truth. Otherwise, it's not like whether they can revolt or take the power back. They don't even know they need to do that.
Yeah.
They live in lies. And a very short clip, sharing with you. I read through this George Orwell, right? George Orwell's Animal Farm. And then this gentleman, he was born in India and he went to UK, England. He lived near London, is in the Oxfordshire or something like that. So, but through whatever his experience, he become a communist believer. And then there was this Spanish War, right? Spanish Civil War. So he went to Spain and tried to fight the Franco army, along with the communist government, fight the Franco army. He stayed there for 2 years, just 2 years. He completely woke up. What a nightmare he was trying to pursue, going after. So communists they just represent lies.
Okay, Ben's asking, but how do you explain of Hong Kong, because they elect their citizens? I don't know what that means, but he said if China controls the media, how come they don't control the Hong Kong media? But that's exactly the opposite.
They do.
They do, right? Remember what happened to Apple Daily's owner, the founder, Jimmy Lai?
They are crushing. They are crushing the free Hong Kong media. Okay, and then now you can still probably read, Apple Daily for now, maybe for another 2 months, then you won't have anything.
Yeah, and before that, in Hong Kong there used to be the radio is very popular in Hong Kong, right? But already it's almost like at least 10 years ago or some years ago, the free speaking radio hosts in Hong Kong, one after another, being shut down. It just happened along the way. But they are not doing it in a very obvious way. But along the way, since 1997, the CCP took over Hong Kong. They just started cracking down the media. Yeah.
Yep. Carol said, I hope U.S. will never become a communist or socialist country. Yep. But we need to stay vigilant. Stay vigilant, stay vocal, and keep learning about. I think we should keep learning about their tactics and keep exposing them. I think American people is a very well informed people. So once they know about the different tactics and deceiving act of Communist Party, I think they are able to tell. They will fail them. And Louis said, happy anniversary. Thank you. It's 18 years ago. As I shared with you before, and Son of Hope is actually accidental media. I never mean to do this. I'm a media consumer. I never mean to be a media host. But it's because when we discovered the Chinese American media are not doing their job, they're deceiving people. That's what trigger me and Kathy to try media in our spare time.
Yes.
We were completely amateur in the beginning.
Yeah, so although we started out from Silicon Valley, we are totally different from those big tech or the social media started from Silicon Valley, what they are doing right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Well, the good people
everywhere
from Silicon
they are
Valley.
good people.
Yeah, Wolfgang, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your donation. And yeah, appreciate it would be with us and share our, happiness. I think if our being able to persist through these years itself actually is a miracle. Okay, we feel very proud of that, and we also feel very optimistic about the future. We will keep building this media, no matter how hard it is. That's our determination, shared by all our staff. So yeah, so with your blessing, with your support, we'll grow. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Ben. And happy anniversary.
Okay, so that will be all for today. Oh, about the
No
joke.
joke?
Oh gosh, it's okay.
I tried the last time.
You tried last time.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try something simple. Okay, this is just a language joke. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, there's a linguistic. Okay, our backhand. You need to be careful about the laughters. Okay. A linguistics professor, because Kathy was talking about the language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, last time. So a linguistic professor was lecturing, giving a lecture in his English class. He said in English, a double negative forms a positive, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. A double negative form a positive. But in some language, though, such as Russian, a double negative is still a negative.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know
That's
Russian.
new to me.
However, the professor said there's no language in which a double positive can form a negative. So a voice at the back of the room pipped up, "Yeah, right." Can you get it?
Well, he just proved he's wrong.
Okay, that's one way. That's one English way of the proving double positive is it's a negative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I have a. Gosh, it's a. Talk about Jimmy, right? Because Kathy talked about Jimmy.
Yeah, the neighbor Jimmy.
Let me just share a small story of Jimmy's other experience. Okay, Jimmy was one day in a Sunday, he was sitting in his room in the afternoon, right? He was just reading, and it was calm on a sunny day, and suddenly, bang, his window got broken.
Oh, what happened?
A football flew in and hit on him. Okay, so then, he's checking, who's doing this? A young boy running down to, his house. He said, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Oh, don't worry. I'll call my father and have him to, fix your window.
Okay.
He said, okay, that's fair enough. Don't be too naughty. Gave him back the football. It's gone. So after 1 hour, there's a big man came over here. Looks like a handyman. Very, very, effective. He just fixed the window and in the 1 hour, just fixed everything. Then asked Jimmy for the repair fee. He said, $50. Jimmy said, what? Aren't you the boy's father? And the handyman said, what? Aren't you the boy's father? Bad boy. Anyway, okay, I just, it could be better, but just leave the show with a light note. How about that? All right, thank you very much. And
Thank you. Have a very nice weekend.
Yeah, have a very nice weekend. Take care and stay positive. And
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, until next show.
All right,
thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.